gonna get started. Hi everybody, my name is Nicholls. I'm from Doer Maker, and I'm joined by this illustrious panel. Christen Waggoner, who is from CPS Energy and is the Interim Vice President of Customer Experience Operations. Lindamood from Questline, Vice President of Marketing and Content Strategy, and Stephanie Knight from Apogee, who is a key account manager. And we're here to talk today about knowing your customer, engaging your customer, reaching out to that customer across the digital divide, and the lessons that we can all learn and take back to our homes. So let's kick it off and talk about just connecting with customers at the highest level. Brian, why don't you get us started? Questline's got an amazing story to tell.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Ashley, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to ETS, too, for having this conversation. I think this particular topic is such an important piece of the broader discussion that we're all having this week about the energy transition, so I really appreciate the chance to be able to speak to that. So Questline is a digital marketing agency that works just with energy utilities. And this topic is near and dear to my heart because our approach is to look at customer engagement through the lens of education. We believe that for a utility to be a trusted energy provider in their community, that means keeping customers informed, answering customers' questions, really empowering customers to feel like they can take control of their energy use. And of course, all of that starts with education. If the customer, feels like they don't know what's going on, if they don't feel that they're in control of decisions about their energy use, that they can make informed decisions, then all of that falls apart. I was really struck by something Drew Higgins of CPS said this morning. He was talking about the evolution of how we see customers from ratepayers in the bad old days to customers now. And the next step of that is to see them as partners. And that really struck me because everything that we're talking about this week, the energy transition, DER, demand response, storage, all the the different topics we're talking about around innovation. None of those work if we don't see our customers as partners. If customers aren't just told about those things, if those things don't just happen to customers have to be part of that. And of course that starts with education.
Stephanie, you want to weigh in with how Apogee is approaching connecting with customers and creating partnerships?
Absolutely, thank you. I never know the right microphone. It's a very intimate room, so I don't want to be too loud. But hello and good afternoon, everyone. Similar to Brian, Apogee focuses specifically on the utility industry and customer engagement. And our approach is using our data analytics and a little bit of AI to really get that level of personalization. We see the biggest impact on participation and getting education, our customers educated when it is personalized to them. And so the way that we do that is we partner with utilities to use the data they have about their customers, maybe finding the information that they don't have, and then turning that into that personalized connection, because that's how we gain that partnership. And you stole that, but I was going to say that too. Ratepayer, customer, partner. The way to do that is speaking to them, in their language. So that's what we're really focused on doing to make sure that we get that educational and that outreach part out there.
Pretty amazing. And Christen, CPS has a lot to communicate to your customers. And in our prep sessions, you told me about a program. I just want you to talk about all the things you talked about in our prep sessions. So where do you want to start with your customers?
So I'll just, reiterate what we've already heard about, looking at our customers differently. And it's no longer, the ratepayer. It's no longer, someone that we're trying to market a thing to, right? This is, especially for CPS Energy, we're a homegrown utility. This is our community, our customers, our families, right? We are part of this community. And so a couple years back, we really changed our philosophy about how we approached customer service and went to a concierge type model, where it really was about making it, meeting the customer where they were at and meeting their needs, their individual or unique needs. So when COVID happened, we started a program called the Core Campaign, which is an outbound campaign where we had about 60 of our energy advisors call out to customers. And it was just as we started a moratorium on disconnects, right? We stopped disconnects and we thought, what else should we do? So we started calling out to customers who were the most vulnerable for disconnection. And even though we weren't disconnecting, our initial stab at that was to say, what can we do to help you stay on track, right? Despite everything that's going on, how do we keep you on track? How do we make sure you don't become eligible for disconnect? But as that program started to, roll, let's say, what we found was it was less about us trying to help customers with payment plans and more about, are you okay, right? As the pandemic started to get worse and worse, we were checking in with people and we were saying, how can we help you? And we started partnering with our, city of San Antonio, our community partners, our agency partners, and saying what resources are out there, right? What can we offer to these customers? And we created a whole resource book. And so as we called out to these customers, it became a conversation about what do you need, right? Not what we need. And hey, if you want to start a payment arrangement right now, we can do that for you. But even if you can't, we're just calling to see how you're doing and what we can do for you. And so we were offering food resources from the food bank, diaper bank resources. Where could they get assistance for their rent? Where could they get funeral assistance, which is a sad but true, consequence of the pandemic. And so not only was it, really digging in and connecting with our customers on a different level, but it also had, the great effect of improving our employee engagement, because the purpose that they found in that program in actually making a difference and impacting people's lives on such a personal level really started to make a difference. So we do still have that campaign going. It, has transcended from COVID and we still offer those resources, but past the winter storm, right, when customers were experiencing water issues or long-term fallout from the storms, we would offer them resources around that. And so again, it's just a program where we're reaching out, and we do everything from boots on the ground. We knock on doors, right, to help customers fill out ARPA applications to get assistance. We have community events where we invite all of our partners, the other, the water utility, Saha, everybody that contributes in the community can come to these events. Customers can show up, and so not only can we help them with their utilities, but we can help them, guide them to other resources that are available to them. So I think if you look at them from the perspective of, we all are energy consumers, right? Our families are energy consumers, and you look at it from the perspective of how do we make a difference in people's lives and bring them with us instead of just kind of communicating at them, right? Bring them along for the conversation, get their feedback, treat them like family, right? We've had lots of positive experience from that. We've been able to connect our customers with over $53 million worth of agency assistance since June of 2020.
Cool, it's really cool. So that's this incredibly personal program, right? Like a huge ripple effect inside the organization. As our digital marketers on the panel here, I'm interested, how do you possibly replicate helping a human being the way that CPS was able to activate their staff to do? How do you do that through email effectively? Can you?
Not that I want to be compared to what CPS does, but I'll give an example. So when COVID hit and our utility clients that run our proactive outbound communications campaign needed something to help get the word out that there were resources, right? It's how you can connect them. There's no replacement for picking up the phone or getting into the community, but what we kind of pivoted to was all of our communications, or most of them, and the ones that are most impactful, are all focused on each customer's individual bill, their bill. We're not generalizing it, we're looking at their usage and their bill. And so because we already had that established, when COVID came, we were able to pull that billing information and tailor the new communication to what was going to happen with their bill, what could happen, and then the resources. So we get and continue to get eyeballs when we talk about their bill. And so it was easy for us to come up with new, we use a lot of video-based communication, so having a video display if you had a payment plan, if you chose this payment plan, here's what your bill would be over the next 12 months. And the video is going to tell them that so they can plan what impacts the moratorium is going to have. And then from that video or from that email, go to the CPS's website or log into their account and sign up for that payment plan. So it's saving a little bit of time in the call center, making those outreach, trying to get people on payment plans. And that's just one example. But because we really tailor it to their bill and the impacts it will have on their income or their household, we saw the most success there.
That kind of personalization, I think, is so important, and it's something that customers expect today, right? Because every other industry is really good at personalized communications, and it's something that I think the utilities do need to get a little better at. The thing that I would add to that too is channel preference. So, understanding customer preferences means understanding that some customers prefer a text message, some prefer email, some still prefer paper. We're working on that, but you need to know that, right? Because you don't want to send a text message to a customer who prefers paper, so you need to understand that. And then I think the other part of making programs like that succeed is to make it as easy as possible for customers to sign up, to opt in, whatever the case is, for conversion. And we're really big on what we call one-click enrollment. So you send an email or you send a text message, and all the customer has to do is click a button on the text message to opt into the program. Do not make the customer track down their account number to fill in some long form. That is the death of program conversions, is the 12-field form that starts with the account number. You've got to make it easy for customers to opt in. And when you were talking about COVID payment plans, that came to mind. We had a lot of success early on in COVID with that exact approach, promoting payment plans with that one-click enrollment to make it very easy for customers to select a payment option and with one click sign up for that.
Amen. Please, all utilities in the room, please move to one-click enrollment. Your marketers are begging you, please. How easy is it to enroll in programs at CPS? Is it one click?
So actually, we have a couple of ways to do that, and I think it speaks to not making the customer work for it, right, and really meeting them where they're at. So our customers can sign up for payment plans or make an extension or reconnect their service all through our IVR. They can do it through our website. They can go into a walk-in center. They can call us on the phone. So I don't think we're quite at the one click yet, but we're working on it. And I think, again, that's where the digital divide comes in that you mentioned earlier, is that not every customer is a click customer, right? There's lots of customers out there that need to have some sort of human touch, right? Whether they walk into a walk-in center or they speak to someone over the phone. I think part of becoming a trusted partner is really building that rapport, and sometimes you need some human interaction, right? So it just depends on the customer. And I think it's an excellent model to have a one-click enrollment. I think it's really important for customers to have easy access to that. But I would say, there are some customers that you will not reach that way, right? So there's got to be an option for them as well.
Well, and so let's talk about equity, because the DEI conversations so far this week at ETS have been so incredible, and there is so much work to be done. So Brian, how is Questline building equity into the services that you're driving with your utility partners?
Yeah. So the two big ways. One is, as I was mentioning earlier, is channel preference, understanding the different channels the customers prefer to be communicated in, and then making sure that you're supporting as many of those as possible, hopefully all of them, as the case may be. The other thing I would say is to be able to provide content, and especially as we talk about educational content, to provide that in different formats for, again, people who like to receive things differently, maybe learn in different ways. An article, a text email might suffice for some people. A lot of customers would rather watch a video, especially these days, and I would say that's not even, we used to think about younger customers relying on that kind of multimedia content. I don't think that's the case anymore. I would rather watch a 2-minute video about a program than read an article, right?
Or a 30-second video.
Yeah. Or, and there are other visual ways, infographics, interactive content, that sort of thing. And again, depending on the communication or the program that you're promoting, you don't necessarily want to rely on just one of those ways. But, you want to make sure that however customers want to learn, however customers, best receive that information, you're able to get it to them across multiple channels and perhaps in multiple formats.
So I heard from SMUD last night that they were just the first utility in the country to do a TikTok challenge. Speaking of channel preference and meeting customers where they are. So does Apogee have a plan to integrate TikTok into, what are you guys doing that's provocative out here?
I'm probably the only millennial in the room that doesn't have a TikTok, so I am not the person to ask in that regard. And Apogee is a traditional company in that regard, so we help utilities on the digital and the marketing side, but I don't think us as a company, I don't know that we'll get into TikToks, and if they do, they'd probably make me do it, and that would be terrible because I don't have a TikTok. But I wanted to add to Brian's point about meeting customers. What we try to do is help the utility have the same consistent message. So if it is a customer that likes paper, maybe it's a bill insert that says, well, because I know the people that like paper also like Facebook, right? They're probably on your social media, even though they like to receive their paper bill or call in. So how do we keep the message the same for that paper insert, and then help the utility come up with that video for their social media page to try to get them to see that technology isn't as scary. But no TikToks in our future, a near future, I guess I should say.
Well, and Christen, CPS had a little bit of a job to do last year in terms of building trust back, and Stephanie mentioned consistent communication. So I know that there's a lot of people here who would want to be taking a lessons learned approach with what you guys had to overcome. What was your strategic plan for how to build that trust back, and how's it gone?
So I'd say, really, it's all about us reaffirming our commitment to our community and our customers, right? And the only way you can really do that is connecting with them, engaging with them, listening to them, right? And ultimately serving. So we have 1.2 million customers, and that's a big group for a small utility. But we're committed to, helping them understand and being more transparent about, what it is that we do, educating them. And I think communication is the biggest area that we need to really work on, and we've been doing that. You mentioned channel of choice. And so we have lots of different ways. It's a multi-pronged approach about how we reach our customers. So we have a platform that does allow customers to choose email, voice, text message. We did a whole campaign about asking customers to call in and give us emergency contact phone numbers, so that as part of our emergency response, if we needed to give customers information quickly, we would have a dedicated phone number. I don't know about you, but for some of us who've had our energy or our utility accounts for a long time, some of them might have old, landline numbers on it or what have you. And when you call in, you verify the last four, and you're like, yeah, that was the number people used in middle school to call us at home.
And so it was really more about what's the best number to reach you, right? And then we can reach those customers through all of those different aspects. And we have been. Just yesterday, we had weather come into San Antonio, and there's been red flag warnings, and fire hazards. And so we did a campaign where we reached out to 465,000 customers just via text and email, right? And it was, a very short paragraph saying there's weather coming in, right? That weather can cause outages. There's a red flag warning. Please be safe. Don't get near down power lines. So it's kind of a proactive approach that outages can and may happen, right? There's a little bit of education about what can happen during red flag warnings. We give our information about contacting our website and here's how you report an outage and that sort of thing. So we've gotten really positive feedback. I won't say that we don't have a long way to go from that space, but as far as proactive communication and updates, which is really what customers want, right? I'm out. When am I going to be back up? So proactive notifications and outage information cause estimated time of restoration. We've made headway there, and the feedback that we're getting is that we're making a difference. And I think a big piece of that is, people, the way that you build trust is by showing that, again, that committed, trusted partner. So us partnering with our city officials, our community, our agency partners, we kind of get that credibility in. We're listening to you. We hear what you're saying. We're bringing the right people together, and ultimately, we are here to serve, and we plan to, make sure that we're listening and we're acting based on what we're hearing.
And a lot of what we've been talking about are these highly pragmatic, necessary messages that we need to get to our customers. And then there's this really big part of the work that we collectively have to do to transform the way that people use energy and educate. So I'm very invested in knowing when my power is coming back on. I'm less invested in understanding the impacts of microgrids on my community or geothermal heat pumps or even ductless mini splits for my small business. Like, I don't have time. So how do we use the tools at our disposal to support the work that our implementation partners are doing inside utilities and actually create change?
I think the first step is don't underestimate how little customers think about those things or know about those things. And I mean, the fact every topic that we've talked about this week, DER, storage, even electric vehicles to a certain extent beyond the, how much fun it is to drive a Tesla. Customers just don't think about that. And we have a huge gap to close when it comes to getting customers up to speed on those types of issues. Now, in terms of how you get their attention, it's really important to listen to your customers, try to understand the benefits of those new technologies from their perspective, and really speak to those. A customer will watch a video, they'll engage with interactive content if they're interested in it. And in fact, if the interactive content is fun enough, maybe they won't even realize that they're learning something, right? They're playing a fun interactive game on the utility website, and next thing you know, they understand a little bit more about energy storage or electric vehicles. So, but you can't capture a customer's attention by just speaking to them with the information that you want to share about it, right? Which, a good example is I just cringe every time I hear the phrase load shifting. Like that, customers, if you use load shifting in a customer-facing situation, you've already lost them, like too late. They do not understand what you're talking about, and they don't want to hear more. You've got to address those issues and get at the underlying benefits, the ultimate benefits to the customer in a way that is more engaging, a way that is interesting to them. And there are benefits to the customers, right? If you are on a time of use rate plan and you're using it correctly, you can save money. And they're all, you can support a cleaner grid, support a more stable grid in your community. And you can get at those benefits, but you can't start there. You have to first understand what is it about those things that is ultimately going to appeal to the customer.
So Brian, you said playing a game on the utilities website. Has anyone ever played a game on your utilities website? Are you doing anything with gamification?
We are not doing anything with gamification on our website, but I would say, there is something to finding fun and innovative ways to connect with your customers. When we do community events, we, and I know this isn't the same thing as doing gamification, but we try to educate in that way and, test customers after we've given them some information, right, to see what sticks and what doesn't. When I first started in the utility industry, which was just 6 years ago, I was new to this. They used to say the average customer thinks about their utility about 7 minutes a year. And we've brought that up some after the winter storm. They think about us a lot recently. But I would say, I think we do Facebook Lives, right, where we invite customers in and we have a dialogue with them and we let them speak and put their feedback in the chat. And I think, it's all about engagement, right, and what ways we can find to engage customers, again, at multiple levels. So I think gamification is a great way to do that, especially if you're trying to get them, to unplug things when they leave the house, right? Or you give them badges as they, lower their usage to a certain amount. I think that's, it's valuable. And I think that it's a good way to help them see the benefits, as you mentioned, right? Not only see the benefits, but reap the rewards as it is. So whether it's an incentive or, some way to get them interested, right? And whether it's a game or it's a conversation or it's a giveaway, I think making that connection is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of our conversation has been a little bit residentially focused, and I think that it's so interesting, right? Like, we all know that some of the biggest impacts that we can have in terms of clean energy transformation is on the commercial side, our small to medium businesses and large C&I. And yet, something happens when we talk about customers where we all talk residential, and then when you talk about marketing, everyone's like, businesses are different, as though they're not people. So how are you guys doing things on the workforce dev, large C&I, small business side of things to transform those communications?
So our philosophy when it comes to personalizing a communication, talking about bills, talking about ways to be more energy efficient, on the residential side is all about the end use disaggregation, right? So getting at the end use, energy users in the home and being able to tailor communication to that. It is much more difficult to do it on the commercial side. And that's the differentiator with us, is that we want to talk very specific and detailed to whoever we're communicating with. So our approach with small to medium businesses, we don't do any commercial, is the engagement piece and kind of that low-hanging fruit that they could take advantage of. So we primarily focus on the residential side just because it's easier to disaggregate usage for residential homes. I actually think that Questline does a fantastic job with commercial outreach. So anytime a utility comes to me and says, what do you do for commercial? They're actually one of the ones that I recommend because I think they do a really good job with that.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's nice to hear. I do, for us, the approach we take with, say, communicating a commercial program, demand response comes to mind. That's one that we frequently promote. The benefits to a business customer are relatively straightforward, right? A business customer wants to improve their operations, save money, and if they can, and even benefits that may seem less tangible, like reducing their carbon footprint, supporting a more stable grid in their community. We try and share with them that they can share those benefits with their own employees and their customers and take credit for that, right? Not only is the facility manager reducing their operational costs, they can brag about how they're helping the community, reduce its carbon footprint or make a more stable grid. and more employees and the customers of that commercial customer like to hear that. So that is a really good benefit.
CPS?
So I think, we have a couple of ways. I think we do have a whole group of executive account managers and key account managers that are very involved personally, one-on-one with our large commercial customers. We have a group dedicated, the Energy to Business team, that connects with our small to medium businesses. And they, to your point about they're still customers, right? They're still people. We'll do energy efficiency kind of surveys with them, right? And offer them the programs, how to weatherize their businesses, and what programs are available to them. Demand response, right? We try to engage those customers in demand response and help make sure that they understand not only the benefit to them, but the benefit, to the entire community. We've put together a green tariff to, kind of incentivize our large commercial customers to operate more sustainably, right? Reduce their carbon footprint. So there's incentive to do that there. So I think, again, it's about understanding, kind of the risks and benefits of how we do business and what our customers need, what we can provide them, and then how we can partner together if there's a gap, right, to close that gap and find ways to better support whatever their needs are.
So, Stephanie, at the very beginning, you talked about data and analytics and helping your utility partners use the data that's available to them. And we work with a lot of utilities, and there's sometimes the feeling that utilities are incredibly data rich and insight poor. And marketers need insights to be able to make good strategic decisions. So my question for all three of you here is, how do you talk about what has worked? Because I certainly have sat in presentations by marketing teams who are like, the click-through rate was this. And everyone in the room just glazes over completely and is like, what does it mean for the business? So how do you talk about marketing in a way that everybody can appreciate and understand?
I'll start, if that's okay. So I think we usually start by asking the utility, what is the most important or impactful result I could deliver to you, right? So if we're looking at the example of, I want to see a 15% increase in customers that are enrolled in budget billing or paperless billing, right? Those are very easy things to have an ROI on for the utility, is reducing that paper. So for us, when we're starting a campaign, and we're going to track the opens and the click-throughs, and that is important, but it's also the conversion rates, which I think Brian mentioned before, with the one clicks, right? So we know as marketers that you have to tell someone 6 times in 7 different ways how to do something, or to get them to act. So what's happening in the background on our communications platform is not just watching the click-through rate, but did they click the call to action? And how much time do they spend looking at that page where the call to action is? We do like the abandoned cart rule, right? Did they look at it but not participate? And when do we send a follow-up email? And we're doing that, which saves the utility time so that you don't have to set those campaigns or, look at them manually. It's all automated. So using the data to see that customer journey makes it more impactful, because we know the right communications to send next to get to them signing up for that program. It may take that one customer 6 months, but it is at least increasing that program participation for the utility.
I would say, in terms of using data to optimize your communications, I mentioned earlier, understanding a customer's channel preference and making sure that you're reaching out in the right way. There are lots of other things that utility does know about customers, or should know, can easily find out about customers to better target the marketing. And, so these are things like who owns an electric vehicle. Hopefully utilities know that, or are in the process of finding that out. Who owns a smart thermostat? Who has participated in past programs who has engaged with content, right? So you may be able to identify customers who are interested in electric vehicles but don't yet own one because they're reading your emails about EVs or going to your website to watch videos about EVs. When you start to identify those, the things, not just the behaviors of customers or their sort of attributes, but the things that they're interested in, then you can better target communications. And that means, sending the right communications to the right customers, but also targeting the message, identifying somebody who you think is interested in EVs because for the last year they've been watching every video that you put out about EVs, they haven't yet bought. What's that hurdle? How can you help them along that last stretch of the journey towards EV adoption, just as one example. And you could come up with that same sort of example for any number of programs or new technology adoptions. On the business side, I think that kind of segmentation, that sort of targeting, starts with industry. At least at the C&I level, if not the SMB level, knowing what industry your customers are in and making sure that you're not sending the same content, promoting the same programs to, say, a manufacturer versus healthcare versus a retail operation. All of those business customers have unique energy needs, unique concerns, and you need to make sure you're addressing them appropriately by industry segment.
We had a utility client a few years ago that had some fantastic segmentation. They also had a lot of teams that were operating at the same time, and they did an audit of how many times a certain population of customers were reached out to, and they found that they were getting 18 emails a week from the utility because energy efficiency sends one and billing sends one and there's an outage, and it was a lot. So how are you guys helping your clients or yourselves to have that holistic view of that customer experience and not fall into the silos?
So I think, my group specifically is the meter to cash group, right? And so I have everything from customer service to customer revenue, which is our billing and back office and accounts receivable, to our metering services, so meter ops and revenue assurance and meter quality. And so in that operations group, I think, we've, under our new acting CEO, Rudy Garza, we're really trying to embody the idea of one team, right? And so that's all about communicating, and not just, across all of the teams under, one particular executive, let's say, and not even really within CPS Synergy, but, across, right? We do have a customer experience group that does look at, the customer personas and the journey mapping and all of those things to make sure that we're engaging in the right time and with the right people. But I think it's really about understanding the customer feedback. So we have several surveys that we do, Escalent survey. We do focus groups and get, direct feedback from customers about what's too much, what's too little. We were just talking about sending out text and email notifications about the weather. And, sometimes we get feedback that's great, we've got the news. Thanks for letting us know there's going to be wind tomorrow, But then on the other side, my boss, Deanna Hardwick, was here yesterday, and a bartender said to her, "Hey, I got a text message last night about the weather. I think that's really great, but my name's," I don't know what his name was, John, and the email came out to Rachel, And so, first of all, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, we'll get your name. Is it the right phone number? Are we, so we'll get that changed." And he was like, "Oh, well, does that mean I won't still get them? Because I really like them, So I think that's where, making sure that you know what customers want and asking them, right, what's too much or too little is important, because in some cases, some people are going to want to know that it's going to be windy tomorrow and what, the potential impacts for that. And some people are going to say no. So to the preference, comment earlier, you really have to engage your customers to tell you what they want to see, what they want to hear, what they don't, and just make sure that you're communicating across the organization to make sure that you're not doubling your efforts and kind of making communication white noise, because that's a real risk.
All right, so final question here is a provocative question. So I have been so excited. So what I've wondered is, for Apogee and Questline, you've got a room full of utility decision makers here. What advice would you give to the utilities? What thing do you wish the utilities were doing differently that would have a demonstrable impact on their customers? And then for CPS, I'd ask the same question, but of your internal colleagues at the utility, what, if you could wave a magic wand and change something, what would it be, and how would you give that advice?
So I'm going to volunteer to go first to give her the most time, because that's probably the most important information. I don't know that I would ask them to do something differently. A lot of the conversations I have with the decision makers is kind of along the same lines of what we've been talking about is, are we over communicating? We already send these types of messages. What's going to make this different? And so it's really being open-minded to what are proven methods in the digital transaction world that do make those impacts. And we do our best as their partners to show our statistics and our ROIs and our metrics of success. So I try to ask for open-mindedness when it comes to new, because our communications are primarily video-based. And we all can say we like to watch videos, but for a utility to send out a video forecasting a bill or proactively saying, hey, it's going to be higher this month and here's why and here's what you can do, it needs to be accurate. It needs to go to the right person. You certainly don't want to explain someone else's bill. So I would just say, the conversation is around keep an open mind. We challenge ourselves every day to really show those proven results, because it is new. For some utilities, it's not. We talk about SMUD and they're like way over here, and some utilities are still kind of stuck. So just that open-mindedness to try new things and to do pilots is helpful for us to show those results and benefits.
It's so important to listen to customers, to keep customers' perspective in mind whenever you're talking about program rollout or a new technology, whatever the case is. And it may seem that goes without saying, but I do think that the customer's perspective gets lost in the process a lot. A lot of the stuff we've been talking about this week, the energy transition and all of the innovations that go along with that, so much of that is being driven by operations, by engineers, by lots of other, smart and hardworking people behind the scenes at the utility. And that's great, but you don't want those processes to go too far without having a customer advocate involved as well. Ideally a designated customer advocate, at very least, getting a marketing and communications function involved at some point in the process. We were working on a time of use billing rollout recently for a utility, and we were brought in very late in the game. The entire program had been set up and designed by engineers. And again, not to take anything away from them, they're doing great work. They had named the rate plan TOU billing. It was the literal name of the rate plan, and it's an example of something getting like really far along in the process without anyone speaking up and representing the customer. Like, hey, wait a second, what are customers going to think of? Like, are they going to understand the name of this rate plan? And there's there are going to be a lot more examples like that as we all start to roll out the new technologies that we've been talking about. The next few years is going to mean a lot of changes for our customers and a lot of new things for them to learn. And we need to make sure that we keep them in mind throughout as much of that process as we can.
I'm going to go with his answer. No, certainly I think, having to keep the customer at the forefront is really important. And I would say, technology is great and the digital transformation is necessary, but I think, you know, there is something to be said for making sure that there is equity and that, you know, you have all of your segment of customers in mind when you roll something out, so that nobody's left behind.
It's a pretty good way to end this. I know we kind of ran right up to the time here because it was so good, but does anybody have any questions?
So, first of all, I feel attacked about the time of use rate. That's exactly what we named it.
It's not what I meant, but it's just a coincidence.
Larger picture, seeing as how we have to have greater touch points with seemingly less frequency, right? And we talked about TikTok, we talked about Facebook, but every single customer has like a channel of choice. How do you manage that? What are the best practices, and what can we do to get there?
It's not easy. I mean, it takes work. I think it starts with a consistent messaging strategy that crosses all the channels. Stephanie mentioned this earlier. This is just critical. Before you start to get into the individual tactics or the individual channels, you need to start with the messaging strategy that's going to be consistent throughout. The next step of that is to understand who you're going to communicate with. So, you know, some messages you're going to want to get out to all of your customers or as many as possible. And in those cases, you might have to carry that message across multiple channels, 3, 4, 5 channels. There may be other, you know, depending on what the message or the program is, you may be able to be more specific and identify that, you know, for this particular message, you can reach all or most of the customers through, you know, social media and text message, and you don't need to worry about a bill insert for this particular message. So I think it really starts with that strategy to make sure that you are being consistent, and then you can filter down into the individual channels based on the, you know, the goals and who the audience is for that, you know, whatever that particular campaign is.
I just want to encourage you. We work with Tampa Electric. I don't think that they're here in the room, but they just did a rollout of a whole preference center and have incredible adoption. So if you want, I can connect you with someone that's in charge of their preference center there, but a big effort, and they've seen a lot of success getting the right preferences for their customers. So,
Any other questions? It is pretty hot in this room, so we can all go out there and still talk to each other. That's another thing. Please give a round of applause to these wonderful panelists.